I was 19 when my family turned their backs on me, all because my sister lied and said I stole from her. My name's Ethan, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This broke me in ways I'm still trying to piece back together. Sitting in my beat-up car that night, parked under a flickering streetlight, with everything I owned stuffed into 2 duffel bags in the back seat, I felt like the world had chewed me up and spit me out. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong, but the truth is, it wasn't just one moment. It was years of little cracks in our family that finally shattered when my sister Claire decided to point the finger at me. Growing up, it was just me, Claire, Mom, and Dad, in a small house in Ohio, the kind with creaky floors and a front porch that sagged like it was tired of holding itself up. We weren't rich, not even close. Dad worked as a mechanic, hands always stained with grease, and Mom was a part-time cashier at the grocery store down the street. Claire was 2 years younger than me, 17 when this all happened, and she'd always been the golden child. Not in a cliché way, but in the way that she could do no wrong in their eyes. She had this smile that could charm anyone, and she knew how to use it. Me? I was the quiet one, the kid who kept his head down, worked odd jobs after school, and tried not to make waves. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't a thief either. The accusation came out of nowhere, like a punch you don't see coming. It was a Friday night, and I'd just gotten home from my job at the hardware store. I was exhausted, my boots caked in mud from helping unload a delivery truck. All I wanted was to grab a shower and crash, but as soon as I walked through the door, I knew something was off. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, her arms crossed, eyes red like she'd been crying. Dad was pacing, his jaw tight, and Claire was standing by the sink, looking at the floor like she was trying to disappear. "Ethan," Mom said, her voice sharp. "We need to talk." I dropped my backpack by the door, my stomach twisting. "What's going on?" I asked, glancing at Claire. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom held up a small velvet pouch, the kind you'd keep jewelry in. "This was in your room," she said, her voice shaking. "Claire's necklace, the one Grandma gave her before she passed. She said you took it." Froze. "What? I didn't take anything. I don't even know what you're talking about." Claire finally looked up, her eyes glassy with tears, but there was something off about them, something rehearsed. "I saw you, Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you go into my room last week. The necklace was in my jewelry box, and now it's gone. And then Mom found it in your dresser." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "That's not true," I said, looking from her to Mom to Dad. "I didn't go in her room. I didn't take anything. Why would I?" Dad stopped pacing and pointed a finger at me. "Don't lie to us, Ethan. We found it in your room. You think we're stupid?" "I'm not lying," my voice cracked, and I hated how desperate I sounded. "I don't know how it got there. I swear I didn't touch it. But they didn't believe me. Not Mom, not Dad, and definitely not Claire, who was now crying into her hands like she was the victim. I stood there, my heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Grandma's necklace was this gold chain with a tiny heart pendant, something she'd worn every day until she got sick. She gave it to Claire when she was 10, said it was for her to remember her by. I knew how much it meant to Claire, or at least, I thought I did. But I also knew I hadn't taken it. I wouldn't. I wasn't that kind of person. The argument went on for hours. I tried to explain, to beg them to listen, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Mom kept saying, "Why would Claire lie about this?" And Dad just kept shaking his head, muttering about how he couldn't believe I'd stoop so low. Claire stayed quiet after her initial accusation, letting them fight her battle for her. By the end of it, I was drained, my throat raw from shouting, my hands shaking. That's when Dad said the words that still echo in my head. "If you can't be honest with us, you can't stay here." I thought he was bluffing. I mean, he was my dad. He'd always been tough, but he wasn't cruel. But when I looked at Mom, she wouldn't meet my eyes. She just nodded, like they'd already decided this before I even walked in the door. "You need to leave, Ethan," she said quietly. "We can't have this in our house." I remember standing there, staring at them, waiting for someone to say it was a mistake, that they didn't mean it, but no one did. Claire just sat there, her face buried in her hands, and I realized she wasn't going to say anything to fix this. She'd set me up, and I didn't know why. I packed my bags that night. I didn't have much, just some clothes, my phone, a couple of books, and the $50 I had in my wallet. I kept waiting for one of them to stop me, to say, "Wait, let's talk about this." But the house was silent except for the sound of my own footsteps. When I walked out the front door, the screen slammed behind me, and it felt like the end of something I'd never get back. I drove around for hours that night, not knowing where to go. My car, an old Honda Civic with a busted heater, was the only thing I had left. I ended up in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, the neon sign buzzing, like it was mocking me. I sat there, staring at the dashboard, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Why would Claire lie? We'd never been super close, but we weren't enemies either. Sure, we fought sometimes like siblings do, but it was never anything serious, or so I thought. The next few days were a blur. I crashed on a friend's couch, Jake, a guy I'd known since middle school. He didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a blanket and said I could stay as long as I needed. But I could tell he was uncomfortable, like he didn't know how to handle me being so broken. I didn't tell him the whole story, just that I'd had a fight with my family. I was too ashamed to admit they thought I was a thief. I kept going, to work at the hardware store, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was falling apart. Every night, I'd lie awake on Jake's lumpy couch, replaying that night in my head. I tried calling Mom a few times, hoping she'd cooled off, but she didn't answer. I texted Claire, asking her why she did it, but she never responded. Dad sent me one message. You need to figure out how to make this right. Make what right? I didn't do anything. About a week later, I saw Claire's car parked outside the coffee shop where she worked part-time. I don't know what possessed me, but I went inside. She was behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine, and when she saw me, her face went pale. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, glancing around like she was afraid someone would see us. "I want to know why," I said, keeping my voice low. "Why'd you lie about the necklace, Claire? You know I didn't take it." She looked away, her hands shaking as she scrubbed the same spot on the counter over and over. "I don't know what you're talking about," she muttered. "Just leave, Ethan." "No," I said, louder than I meant to. A couple of customers glanced over and I lowered my voice. "You owe me an explanation. You got me kicked out. My whole life's a mess because of you." Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for a second, I thought I saw something. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But then she shook her head. "You shouldn't have gone in my room," she said, sticking to her story. "Just go." I left, because what else could I do? I wasn't going to make a scene in her workplace, but walking back to my car, I felt this rage bubbling up inside me, mixed with something else. Grief, I think. I'd lost my family, my home, everything I thought was solid. And for what? A lie I couldn't prove was a lie. The weeks turned into months, and I tried to rebuild. Jake's mom started hinting that I needed to find my own place, so I scraped together enough money for a deposit on a tiny studio apartment. It was a dump, peeling wallpaper, a sink that leaked, and a mattress I found on Craigslist. But it was mine. I kept working at the hardware store, picked up extra shifts whenever I could, and started taking night classes at the community college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I figured I needed something to keep me moving forward. Still, the pain didn't go away. I'd see families at the store sometimes, moms and dads with their kids, laughing or arguing or just being together, and it felt like a knife in my chest. I missed my parents, even though I was so angry at them for believing Claire over me. I missed the way things used to be, before everything fell apart. I kept wondering what I could have done differently, if there was something I missed, some sign that Claire was planning this. Then, about 6 months after I got kicked out, I got a call from my cousin Mia. She was a few years older than me, always the one who'd sneak us candy at family gatherings when we were kids. She lived a couple of towns over, but we hadn't talked much since I left home. "Ethan," she said when I picked up, "I need to tell you something. Can we meet?" We met at a diner, the same one I'd parked outside that first night. Mia looked nervous, fiddling with her coffee mug. "I heard what happened," she said. "And I didn't want to get involved, but I think I know why Claire did it." My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" Mia leaned in, her voice low. "A couple of months before you got kicked out, Claire was hanging out with this guy, Derek. I saw them together at a party. He's bad news, Ethan, into some shady stuff, like selling weed and worse. I heard from a friend that Claire was trying to impress him, acting all tough. She was bragging about how she could get away with anything at home. How your parents always took her side." I stared at her, my mind racing. "So you're saying she made it up to what? Look cool?" Mia shrugged, looking uncomfortable. "I don't know for sure, but I think she might have lost the necklace or sold it or something, and she needed someone to blame. You were the easy target." It hit me like a freight train. All this time, I'd been trying to figure out why Claire would do this to me, and the answer was so stupid, so petty. It made me sick. She threw me under the bus to save face with some loser boyfriend. I wanted to scream, to drive to her coffee, shop and demand the truth, but I just sat there numb. "Did you tell Mom and Dad?" I asked. Mia shook her head. "I tried, but they didn't want to hear it. They're so convinced you're the bad guy, Ethan. I'm sorry." I thanked Mia and left the diner, my head spinning. Part of me wanted to confront my parents, to tell them what Mia said, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't change anything. They'd made their choice, and it wasn't me. The next year was the hardest. I threw myself into work and school, trying to drown out the pain. I made a few friends at college, people who didn't know about my past, who didn't look at me like I was a thief, but I carried the weight of it everywhere. Every time I saw a missed call from Mom or Dad, rare as they were, I'd feel this flicker of hope, only for it to die when I realized they were just checking if I'd come clean yet. Then, one day, I got a letter. It was from Claire, handwritten, which was weird because she never wrote anything by hand. It was short, just a page, but it changed everything. She didn't admit to lying, not outright, but she said she was sorry for how things turned out. She said she'd moved out, gotten her own place, and was trying to figure herself out. She didn't mention Derek or the necklace, but she wrote, "I know you didn't deserve what happened. I hope you're okay." I read that letter over and over, sitting on my lumpy mattress in that crummy apartment. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to hate her forever. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the little sister who used to beg me to play hide-and-seek, just felt sad. I didn't write back. I didn't know what to say. Years passed, and I kept going. Graduated community college with an associate's degree in business. Got a better job managing inventory at a warehouse. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And for the first time, I felt like I was building something for myself. I moved into a better apartment, one with actual windows that didn't leak when it rained. I even started dating a little, though I was careful not to let anyone get too close. Trust was hard after what happened. I didn't talk to my parents much. They'd call every now and then, usually on holidays, but it was always strained. They never apologized, never acknowledged that they might have been wrong. I think they were too proud, or maybe too ashamed. Claire and I didn't talk either, though I heard through Mia that she'd broken up with Derek and was trying to get her life together. Then last year, I got a call from Mom. She was crying, said Dad had a heart attack. He was in the hospital, stable, but not out of the woods. "He's asking for you," she said. "Please, Ethan." I didn't want to go. I'd spent years building walls around my heart, and the idea of seeing them again felt like tearing them all down. But something in her voice, the way it broke, when she said my name, made me say yes. When I walked into that hospital room, Dad looked smaller than I remembered, hooked up to machines that beeped softly. Mom was there, and so was Claire. It was the first time I'd seen her in years. She looked different. Older, quieter, like life had worn her down too. Dad reached for my hand, his grip weak but steady. "I'm sorry, son," he said, his voice rough. "We were wrong." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there holding his hand, feeling like I was 19 again, waiting for someone to make it right. Mom started crying, saying she should have listened to me, that they'd been too quick to believe Claire. Claire didn't say anything, but she looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real regret in her eyes. We talked for hours that day, the four of us, in that sterile hospital room. It wasn't a fairy tale reunion. There was too much hurt for that. Claire admitted she'd lost the necklace, panicked, and made up the story about me to cover for herself. She didn't mention Derek, but she didn't have to. I already knew. She said she'd been too scared to come clean, too afraid of losing Mom and Dad's trust. So she let me take the fall instead. I wish I could say I forgave her right then and there, but I didn't. I'm still working on it. Dad got better, went home a week later, and we've been trying to rebuild, piece by piece. It's slow, awkward, full of moments where the past creeps in and makes us all quiet. But we're trying. Looking back, I realized something. Family isn't just the people you're born to, it's the people you choose to fight for, even when it hurts. I lost a lot when they kicked me out, but I gained something too, myself. I learned how to stand on my own, how to keep going when everything feels broken. And maybe that's the real lesson here. No matter how bad it gets, no matter who turns their back on you, you're stronger than you think. You can survive. And sometimes, when you least expect it, the people who hurt you most will come back, asking for a second chance. Whether you give it to them, that's up to you. For me, I'm still figuring it out, one day at a time.